Welcome to the Utah Puck Report, brought to you by Only Crowns. That's right, the hockey podcast sponsored by a dentist that can get you crowns. Definitely check into them. I know we mentioned that at the beginning of the show in the intro, but I just think it's awesome that a Crown Place is my sponsor because, man, I've needed a lot of crowns in my hockey days. Fun episode today. I'm joined by Bill McCloud and Mason Mannek. I think we're kind of making this a thing lately, right, guys?
Yeah,
we better keep a good thing going.
Yeah.
Let's talk for a minute about. So we're recording this on Thursday night in between two Utah Hockey Club games. They played last night against Vancouver. Early in the morning, Vancouver was favored. And then in the afternoon, Vegas kind of switched the odds to Utah being favored. And by game time, Vancouver was favored again. And I think that's kind of how the game went. Well, in reverse, though.
Yeah.
Because, man, what a game. Mace, were you there?
No, I didn't make it. It was my father-in-law's 50th birthday. So I was doing that, but I watched it.
Okay. Oh, happy birthday. Tell him happy birthday.
Yeah, appreciate that.
So yeah, let's talk about that OT thriller and what we saw. What did you guys like about the game? What did you kind of feel? Bill, I'm going to start with you. Tell us about what you were thinking while you were watching the game.
You know, when I was watching the game, I of course, as a fan of the UHC, you get that panic moment of, oh my gosh, here we go again. We're down 2-0. We're not closers. You know, how are we going to come back from this? And I think, they must have all heard us because they answered. And I think 3 unanswered goals. But what I really saw was after each goal, I see them coming together as a team, and gelling more and more with each game. And I think that's what happened really well last night was, they'd score a goal and you'd see the whole team just get all fired up in the cellies and the crowd. And my favorite reaction of the night was seeing Ryan Smith, through the glass when they won in overtime. I mean, come on, that says it all right there. This team is gelling. They're coming together. They're learning from their mistakes. They're figuring it out. And it's been fun to watch the evolution of not just the team, but the crowd and the fans and how the country's reacting to us. And, they did it last night. And I think that they showed the whole country, we're here. Let's go, and the Utah fans were right with them and Ryan Smith out of his seat. It was it was almost like it was scripted, it was fun to watch.
Yeah, I agree 100%. What is the deal, Mace? Have you ever been on a team that just has, maybe there's a jinx or something? What is the deal with our second periods where we just have?
It's crazy. It's like every time.
Have you ever experienced anything like that, or what do you see from that?
I don't know. It's hard to say. I'm sure I did at some point, but yeah, maybe it's just a mental thing. It's crazy what good mental juju, I guess, can do for you, but also a bad. So I don't know if it's maybe after the first period, they're in their heads let's try to get out of this next 20, and maybe they sit back on their heels a little bit. But I don't know. But it seems like it's definitely a constant thing. But on the positive side of that is we're getting out of it a lot better than we were. Just jumping off kind of that is a lot less penalties. I think that's usually what's been killing us. And then we talk a little bit about special teams. Their power play's clicking now. So I don't know. I don't know if it's just in their heads, but it definitely seems like a consistent thing that's going on. But like I said, they're getting out of it better as of late.
It seems like it had happened, and we've talked about this before where it starts happening, you're like, oh, here we go. And the guys would think that on the bench too, that looked like they were like, oh, here we go again.
Yeah.
And then we weren't able to get out of that. But now we're able to get out of it. And I think, we'll talk about some of the social media stuff going on right now because there's definitely a troll. I don't understand why trolls troll, and maybe we can talk about that a little bit.
Yeah.
But on social media, we dropped a couple games, especially after when we lost that lead we had to the Sharks. Everybody's like, "Oh, fire bear!" And I'm like, "You guys just don't get it."
Yeah.
And maybe, and there's times where I think I get it and I don't get it, but we have a coach that we brought in to teach these guys and to help them grow as young men and as athletes. And his job is to mold the youth into, a functioning team. And he broke down, I think he was talking about Cooley's 200 game. Maybe he's talking about Gunther's 200-foot game. And just if you're not, I don't care who you are or where you were picked, if you are not playing the 200-foot game that we are playing as a team, then your ice is going to suffer. Your ice time is going to suffer.
Yeah.
And the way he's been running it, now everything seems to be coming together. And look, I'm not naive enough to think that we're just going to run through the rest of the season and not have more challenges. But it's nice to just have small challenges during the game or, small adversities that the team meets and then gets through it rather than having a 10 game adversity. You know what I'm saying? And I think that, and Mace, you could tell us more than anybody else. Is this Bears master crafting? Is that why the team is gelling like this?
It very well could be. I mean, it's definitely probably a good mix of both, right? Like the guys are spending. I think we kind of maybe brought a point to it a couple episodes ago that they've been on a couple decently long road trips now. So I mean, that could help. But yeah, I mean, I've fully been a full believer that he's a player's coach, right? And he's one of those coaches that there's no BS in the middle. There's like he's not gonna tell you something that's not true. And as a player, you can't ask for anything more because I mean, I've played for some coaches that there's a lot of guesswork where it'll be like, hey, can I up my minutes? Like, what can I do to get better? And then it's like, oh, you're doing great. Don't worry about it. But then the door closes and that's not the case, right? So with what I see from Bear is that he's super upfront. There's no fluff with anything. He tells you how it is, and the players respect that at the end of the day. Like this is a super small snapshot, but I think he got his 100th win when they were in Buffalo, I believe.
Yeah.
And they posted a video of I think Keller giving him the puck, and you could just kind of see the guy's reaction to him getting that, and everybody being happy about that. And that's a huge testament to how your players feel about a coach.
Yeah, it seems like the whole team, and this is what blew me away. And I've brought this up on a lot of episodes that when they talk about the Navy SEALs and how they get them to be such a high performing organization, is they put them through a lot of crap. They take them as a unit, like they put you individually through a bunch of crap, right? So that you learn what your limits are, and then they put you in a group and they put you in almost unwinnable situations, and then you find a way to come out of them together. And it seems like maybe all this drama that they went through in the past, because when they got here, they seemed to be a tight knit group.
Yeah.
And I know they're a team, but this is a tight knit group, like more so than I've seen on most teams. And I was lucky enough to be an NHL rep where I got to go into a lot of locker rooms. And I would go into some locker rooms and you could tell it wasn't a winning culture. And then you would go into some other locker rooms and you could tell that it definitely was. And I've always wondered what it was. And like a couple times I had players, I've talked about them before, Jamal and Jaden Eckett. Like I would take those guys any day because you put them in a locker room and they found a way to make that locker room more fun and all the drills were more fun. And I don't know what the magic sauce is. Like, how do you get a team like that to have that winning attitude? And
I think the age of the team too. They're one of the youngest teams in the NHL. A lot of them are fresh out of college or juniors, and I think they bring a lot of that young energy with them. And I think that's really contributing to their play right now. Like, they're bringing that to the crowd. They're bringing it to everything that they do. And I think a coach, if he can harness that, which it seems like he's finding a way to do, it can really help out in clutch parts of the game, second period, when you're down or, especially now driving through the finish line, which they were having struggles with in the beginning. So, I think the age of the team is helping a lot with that. They've got that energy to give and, they haven't been around forever. And Keller, what an amazing captain he's been right now, and he's got that maturity, but I think he still has that energy of a young guy, so it's been enjoyable to watch for sure.
So let's talk about that a little bit more. Let's talk about the growth of Keller as a leader. I kind of wondered at the beginning, because they notoriously didn't have a captain last year, and I wondered, okay, did they give Keller the C because he was the captain? He should have always been the captain. Did he earn it? Something different, preseason, or was it more because like this is a new uniform, new town, new team. Let's do it this way. But it seems like he really is that leader. I kind of watched him progress. I think I complained a few times about he comes in, he pulls up, and he looks to pass.
Yeah.
And now he's looking to shoot. He's scoring goals.
Yeah.
And Mace, you mentioned it. The power play's clicking, and I think that's why. I think our first two games, everybody's like, Dylan Gunther's the only threat. So,
No,
what do you think?
Yeah, no, those are good points. With Keller, I mean, it's kind of like somewhat in a similar boat as Schmaltz, maybe not to like the extent of how Schmaltz had a tough time scoring, but with Keller, like he was just doing all the things right, I thought, but he wasn't producing quite on in the scoring perspective, I should say. But now you see him kind of blossom, and could that be comfortability with being the captain now that settling in? It definitely can, and like from a player's perspective, when you talk about just to kind of jump off what you said about them choosing him as the captain, is like for me when I was playing, I would say like some of my favorite captains was like because 70% of what they were like off the ice and how they brought a group together, and 30% about what they did on the ice. And so obviously we can't speak to the 70% because we're not in the locker room with them, but the 30% is he always shows up, man. Like he's always there. Like I haven't seen a lot of games where he's not involved. So yeah, I mean that's a huge testament to him, because I mean he's a young captain, and the way he plays is a super skilled game. And as a captain, sometimes that's I feel like this probably isn't 100% true, but like a lot of captains kind of have that chip on their shoulder, maybe play a little bit on the rougher side where he has a pretty much all skill game, but I mean, he makes it work good.
11 goals, 19 assists for 30 points in 31 games for Clayton
Yeah.
Keller. Gunther, 14 goals, 16 assists for also 30 points. And then Cooley, Schmaltz, 28, 25 points respectively. Last night before the game, Gunther was leading Keller in goals and is still leading. Like he's got 3 more goals. With a guy like Clayton Keller, don't you think that's like he's so competitive?
Yeah.
But he's the guy, he's the disher, right? But don't you think he also wants to be leading in goals?
I think it says a lot about his personality. He's not a selfish guy. He's grown up being that leader, and he's grown up like with goals inside. I mean, I love the story of the stickies on his this closet door from his dad. Put your goals on a sticky and do it. And I think his goal right now with this team, and you can see it and you can feel it, is he wants to score those goals, but I really see him wanting to make the other members of the team better too. And I think that's what he's doing right now. Is maybe that's part of the recipe is. He's feeding these guys and getting them goals, and guess what? It still makes them better players. It makes them a better team. It makes them deeper on the. He's almost like Gretzky backwards. Gretzky ending in his career ending. He was the guy that dished it to everybody. But it still showed leadership, and it showed a lot of unselfish play on his part. And I think Keller's kind of amplifying that a little bit right now.
Yeah, 100%. And I think that really does speak highly of his leadership. And he at the beginning of the year, he definitely was a disher. And so maybe that's just always what he does. But I just see him being so competitive that I see him, and he'll probably be the leading point guy because he'll just keep dishing to everybody else and keep getting assists. 31 games in, and at the beginning of the year, I kind of knew I'd watched a few Coyotes games. I knew some of these guys. I remember watching Cooley and Gunther and those guys in the World Juniors. World Juniors is something we need to talk about too.
Oh,
Not this episode. We'll talk about it next episode because I'm writing an article right now, kind of explaining World Juniors to a lot of the KSL readers, just because a lot of people don't know what it is. But anyway, it was fun watching all those.
There's actually a player from the Utah Outliers right now representing at World Junior, so that's kind of an amazing thing. Yeah,
amazing. So yeah, we'll just do a whole episode on that. But looking at this, and when players were coming in. And I was like, who am I going to like to watch? Obviously, I always watch goaltenders. And I really, like, Veggie was my guy because he wears Brian's, and I wear Brian's. And so we just kind of figured it. But, and Mace, we'll start with you. Did you think you would have a favorite player on the team? Who was it at the beginning of the year? And who is it now?
Oh, it's so hard. I don't know if I can narrow down to one, but I will say.
Give me your top 2.
Okay. I'll tell you, at the beginning of the year, after that preseason game, when LA came here, Michelli was electric. Like that game, I remember texting my dad, being like, "Dude, this Michelli guy's legit." So he was on my radar early. Now, top 2, Kesselring has jumped out at me big time. We watched him last year too, and he was good. he didn't. I wouldn't say he like stood out to me. And keep in mind this is like one game I watched because we get blackout from Arizona, so I couldn't watch any of them. But yeah, he's been awesome. Like just like kind of taking the bull by the horns, like taking advantage of every opportunity he's in. So I've really enjoyed watching him, and I'd say Jack McBain. He's been awesome, super glue guy. Last night, actually, I was gonna bring this up, but like the first shift of the game, if you watch his first shift, like I think he had 3 hits, like in on the forecheck, like setting the tone big time. So I think he complements Cooley and Gunther really well too. So I don't know, maybe McBain and Kessering.
That's funny because I said that to Monica. Like I watched the game last night from home, which really killed me when it went to OT. But I stayed home last night, and Jack McBain's flying around. I'm like, wow,
Yeah.
like, we don't hit very often. Like we're not a physical team. So I mentioned that to my wife, and then I'm like, I might as well just tell the cat. My wife doesn't care. She just reads the book while I watch the game. So Bill, who do you got? Who did you think you had, and who ended up? Who's your favorite right now?
I was at that welcome party, and I'll tell you what, I was fangirling pretty hard over Spicy Tuna.
Yeah,
leading penalty guy in the NHL, and he brought a lot to the team. But as the team, as the season progressed, when he got scratched a few times, it gave you the opportunity to watch some other players. And I think the one that for me sticks out, Sergachev. I just love the guy. What he does at the point, what he does when he pushes in the zone. He creates so many opportunities. Not just for himself, but for other players. And I think he's a closer, and I think we need more of that with the UHC. And I've loved watching Sergachev play. I'm a goalie guy too, though, So, but I'm a Logan Cooley fan too. I think he's got a lot of good hockey in him, and we're going to see him for a long time. And I think, as we see these exiting players, even Sidney Crosby's on his way out. He's kind of declining. I think guys like Logan Cooley and Clayton Keller are going to really step it up and fill those shoes. And I think we're going to see a lot of them. And I'm glad they're with the Utah Hockey Club. So those right now are my guys. But I'm hoping that Spicy Tuna gets in a few more fights. So
yeah, I think I think we'll see him again now that we've kind of got our penalty problems figured out. I can see him getting back in the lineup. I wouldn't change anything right now. Obviously, I would just keep going with everything exactly how
it's hard to think like who you would take out.
Yeah, exactly. Well, and I chirped somebody that was like, "Oh, we should trade for Fox from the Rangers," and I'm like, "All right, who are you going to give up?"
Yeah, exactly.
Where because right now the recipe's working. And what you said about Sergachev, he's so deceptive in his movements. At no time does he look like he's working hard, but he just blows past guys. Like, I wish I had that ability. I'm not saying he's not working hard. I'm just saying he makes it's effortless. The NHL sometimes looks really easy to him, and being able to back check and get into the proper positions. Like nobody really gets around him.
Yeah.
He's a competitor.
Yeah, he's an absolute
competitor. There's a reason.
He's one of those guys
playing.
He's one of those guys playing both ends of the ice. Like you said, you got to play 200-foot hockey. And he's one of those guys doing it.
Yeah. So for me, it's funny at the beginning of the year, I thought I was going to really, my favorite player was going to be Dursey. I've always enjoyed watching Dursey play. It kills me that he's out of the lineup. He's so much fun to interview, and he's so much fun to be around. I'm sure he's just energy in that locker room, and he's that guy on the ice he'll like they said in the beginning, he'll go through a wall for his team. He's fun to watch. And then the guy that's really surprised me, and I don't want to sound cliche by talking about how smart his game is because he's a Harvard guy, but I really like Kerfoot. I really have grown to appreciate his game. And I don't think I even noticed him the first couple games. But to be honest, I was so overwhelmed by the fact that I was watching the NHL in Utah. Yeah. I don't even know when I got home if I could even tell you what happened. And I know that's weird because I'm supposed to be in the media and write about it right away, talk about it. But I was just so overwhelmed. And then as I started watching and getting to know guys and get to see what they were doing every day in practice, Kerfoot he does so many things that don't show up, just like Stenlund. They both have these roles that maybe, Stenlund's popping up on the score sheet all the time, and Kerfoot doesn't. But man, that guy's irreplaceable in the things he's doing, the battles, and just his smart play with and without the puck. I've been really impressed with him.
He seems to always make the right play. Like, he's just a guy that you can count on in like all situations. I know they talk about him quite a bit during the games, just about how important he is because you can count on him in any situation.
Yeah, I agree 100%. So big greasy win last night, big OT win. Going into Minnesota. Minnesota lost last night to Florida. So now we're going into their barn. Minnesota's one of the best teams in the league right now. Uh, what do you think waits for our guys? How do you think they respond? And what's your prediction on the game?
I think I think they're a little afraid of us after the last game we played them. What's our record last time game? 7-1-2.
Yeah.
They're going up against one of the best NHL teams right now. And I know I'm saying that and it sounds kind of conceited and I'm, a little biased, but I'll tell you what, the numbers say it all. Like Utah's finding a way to beat the big teams, the little teams on the road, and they're scary on the road right now. And I think Minnesota should be worried. I think that, like you said earlier, they're gelling right now. And it's like, what are you going to do? And so I think they're going to just go out and do what they do and hopefully recover from a loss. But I like Utah. I like the Utah's chances.
I agree. You'd like to think that the way that the Minnesota game went at home, that there'd be a little bit of a chip on our shoulder, just because we were up with 40 seconds left, and then we ended up losing in a shootout. So you'd like to think that obviously the guys didn't forget about that, and then like when you're hot, you're hot. Like the guys are playing well. They're producing. The results are happening. So the combination of those two, I like to agree. I like to think that they have a good chance.
What's the final score, Mason?
Oh man, I haven't got one of these right yet.
Nobody ever does, so it's okay. I don't know if you ever watch any other sports shows. Nobody ever gets it right.
Let's go 3-1 Utah with an empty net.
Wow, nice. Bill?
I'm going to go 4-3 in overtime.
Nice.
Wow, 4-3 overtime. All right. I was going to say 3-2 Utah. Straight up, no OT.
Okay.
Which I shouldn't say because it feels like at this point we just always go to overtime.
Yeah.
If it's like it was last night, then I'm all for it, except for it gives you a heart attack. But
I know.
Like as a hockey fan, are you kidding me? That was crazy.
Oh man, I was just out of my mind. And I've told you guys this before. They told the NHL comes out with these rules. They gave me these rules, and they're like, hey, okay, you're part of the media. You can sit up here in the media area, but you're not allowed to wear Utah Hockey Club stuff, and you're not allowed to cheer for your team. And I'm like, are you kidding me? Because like every time I watch this team, I like the Grinch thing where your heart grows a little bit more. Yeah. Like I start to love them more.
What an analogy.
Yeah, I'm gonna be that super fan that's like my whole basement's gonna be like a Utah Hockey Club rec room or whatever. I've never had fandom like that. I've never had a team that, like, and I thought I did because I always liked, when Trevor was with the Kings, I always really liked watching that. And I tried to not miss a game, but I didn't always know when they were. I know exactly when every Utah home game is or road game. And I'm just a nut. So if you think I'm not going to cheer when they score or win, and if you don't think my neighbors and Sandy heard me last night when we hit that one OT. As a former Grizz, we got to talk a little bit about. Did we talk since I got almost put in? Did we have an episode since then?
Yeah,
right after.
Almost.
Well, I just like to bring that up a lot.
You're still salty about it. You can tell.
Yeah, I just like to bring it up. Yeah. No, I'm kind of glad because I started thinking about it. And I think I told you guys, like, I felt great in warmups or in the morning skate, and then in warmups, I didn't feel great. Like I wasn't touching any pucks. I was trying really hard to catch them when I couldn't. So when I got put in, I'm like, oh, this isn't going to go well.
And it was probably in the third period or something too. After
9 minutes, we had a 6-goal lead. 9 minutes left in the third, and that's when I would have got put in. And I'm like, I might be able to protect a 6-goal lead if they only give up 5 shots.
Yeah.
Like I said, the first shot they took, that Kansas City goalie just saved it, no big deal. And I'm like, I'd still be looking for that thing. Like it was freaking laser. Grizzlies are struggling.
Yeah.
And if you get online again there's some like sincere people, and then there's people that just don't get it. But everybody's fired. Everybody wants Kanasowicz fired. Not everybody. Certain people want Kanasowicz fired or the whole management team. And we need to make changes right now. They've never had a losing streak like this, but last night they go down 4-0 to Lake Tahoe, who was a good team. And they managed to come back and tie it 6-6 and go to OT and lose. Does getting back, does that give you enough momentum to right the ship? The fact that you fought back, you scored 6, or the fact that you still lost at OT, does that just make you think we're still just stuck here?
I think a point's a point, and I think you build off of that. You know, when you're doing so bad and you're losing so many games, you look for anything you can to hold on to take into the next game. You know, a good fight, you know, a good come from behind like this. And even though they lost in overtime, I think it's still a positive note to, you know, they proved to themselves we can do this. And sometimes you just need to put that in front of yourselves to say, hey, you know what? It's time. Like, look at what we did tonight. Let's build off of it and let's take it into the next game. And I think hopefully it's a turning point for the Grizzlies. I really hope so. It's been sad watching them go through this.
Yeah, it's been tough. Mace, what do you think? Like, for me, Kanasewicz's job isn't necessarily wins and losses driven. It's development, right? That's ECHL is development league. You're supposed to be getting these players. You have some drafted players. You have some NHL players under contract, usually goaltenders, and you're supposed to be developing these guys. And we've talked about it, like the beginning day roster compared to what they had last week. Man, it was like 13 different players.
It's crazy.
You only dressed 20, right? So, it's just been unreal to see that. But do you think, and this goes to both of you, but I want Mason to answer first. Do you think that Kanasewicz's job is in jeopardy, or is he doing what he's supposed to be doing?
I sure hope not. You know, it's like I've seen what that guy does behind closed doors. Anybody screaming for him to be gone, like, I don't think you guys understand. Like, he is travel agent, general manager, head coach. Like, he wears a hat of everything. And so, like, and then you talk about, like, they have 13 new guys. Like, he's got to find those new guys. Like, there's so much that goes into it. So I really, 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 with everything I have, hope that it's not in jeopardy. He's by far, hands down, 110% my favorite coach I've ever played for.
He plays for some really good coaches too.
Yeah, he's the man, I'm telling you. So I really hope it's not. And, you know, streaks can go really well or streaks can go really bad, and it just kind of takes that one instance. So I hope they get out of it soon. But like I said, I hope he's there for it all.
And you brought up that he has to find all those players, and I know maybe it's a secret, maybe it's not. I know he rang your phone last week looking for. How come he said no?
You're gonna put me on the spot like that?
Whoa!
You could just say no comment. I get that sometimes. But...
yeah, I got a call too. I think I'm out of it.
I appreciate them thinking of me. At the time, I was taking finals for school, and I already had that planned, so I couldn't really miss out on those. But yeah, I'd like to think that maybe I'd be useful, but it's been a long time, man. I don't know. It's still pro hockey.
Yeah, it is still pro, but it's one of those things where, like, you've been there. They did end up bringing in I forgot his name. They ended up bringing in a couple other guys that, you know, hadn't played for a minute. They fit in all right.
Yeah, maybe.
All right. Well, I think that's going to wrap it up for today. Did you guys see, or did you only know about that text from Robin Lehner because of me?
Yeah, I didn't. I had no idea.
I didn't know about it.
Okay. Well, so coming up next is first off, I'm going to thank you guys. I'm going to thank you guys for taking the time, and I'd like to do this every week with you guys. I think it's fun. I got to get Evan back on. Just didn't work out to have Evan on, and I just think it's a good roundtable, and you guys have expertise. Bill, you're running a team, you know, and so you get to see kind of the GM stuff. You get to see kind of the coaches stuff. So I think you have some real unique insight. So, and then Mace, you know, you've played everywhere, and you've played for some good coaches. Adam Foote was in town. Did you get a chance to catch up with your old buddy Adam Foote?
No, I'm telling you, man, I was so bummed. My parents, they went and seen him afterwards, and my sister too. So I think they come back in February, so I'll be at that one.
Yeah, speaking of coaches that you played for. All right, guys, thanks for being on. Coming up next is my interview with Dr. Dan Freigang. He's one of the top sports psychologists in the country, longtime friend of mine, former Salt Lake Golden Eagle, who he's the sports psychologist for like USA Hockey and Stanford Soccer. He's been with different NHL teams, different Major League Soccer teams, NBA, like he's done it all. And coming up next is my interview with Dr. Dan Freigang. Never had silence, and my brain is now fully broken. that there is no return. The chaos never stopped, and the fantasy and delusion that I prayed was a nightmare, unfortunately, is a reality. That is a tweet from NHL goaltender. I guess I now have to say former NHL goaltender, Vegas Golden Knights goalie Robin Lehner. I read that tweet and it shocked me and kind of made me sad to my core. And I have, we do such a good job on this podcast of keeping things positive, and we just talk about the good things of hockey. But if I look back to when we first started, we're almost on our 500th episode. When I first started, I had my good friend Dan Freigang, who is one of the top sports psychologists in the world. Is it all right if I say world?
Oh, yeah, that's fine. I like it. Maybe I'll get paid more.
Yeah, it's my podcast. I can say what I want, right? So a good friend of mine, a sports psychologist, Dan Freigang. Dan, tell us a little bit about what you do, and then we'll get into maybe not even talking about, let's not talk about Robin, but let's just talk about the general pressure of not just pro athletes, but athletes. So
Yeah.
just if you could quickly kind of reintroduce yourself and your qualifications.
Oh, well, I'm Dr. Dan, the mental man. I'm a psychologist by training, but I'm your friend and I've known you a long time. So it's good to see you. The topic, like the tweet, and this is social media, and it has an effect on us, and it has a huge effect on our teenagers and our little ones. And so when we go through sports challenges us. It's meant to make us stronger. And, we learn to get into social roles and face things. And there is this idea that, a hockey player is indestructible and can't show emotion or fear. And that's an old, outdated idea because we're human beings and we need to think about our experience and say, what are we good at, and ask for help. And, typically men, and certainly in this culture, they don't teach you that very much. And there's Robin, and he's a fabulous athlete. He's one of the top athletes in the world. And he's all this, and there he is in darkness. And if you read that quote, and it hurt you, didn't it, Jay?
Yeah.
Yeah. That could be your grandson. It could be a little boy or a little girl that goes out to the oval or is up in Logan and he wants to do well and she feels this. And we have to be aware in our culture that we're teaching people how to manage themselves, not just can you stick handle? Did you get a goal? Those are outcomes. Very few of our kids will play pro. That's not the ultimate goal. So what Robin's doing for us is it's good in a way. It says, look, you can be on the basketball team, you can be a drama student, but if you're a hockey player, you have to learn. Say, well, what just happened? Who are my friends? And we learn about our bodies and learn how to train, but we also learn about our culture. Is this a culture that I'm part of that helps me? And then you learn about the psychology. So culture, Jay, it's sociology. And we are profoundly affected by the groups that we're in. It affects our psychology, our development of self. Those two things aren't separate. And so it means that, if you're on a hockey team, then there's little core values that a coach or has to, teach people. Oh, we tell the truth, we try hard, we support each other. Well, goodness gracious, there's a lot inside of those three little words that will affect development. Now, I know that's a lot, but this is one of the great things about, sports is you're going to go out, especially hockey, you're going to fall over, someone's going to check you, you're going to feel loss. And you'll feel the opposite. You'll hit somebody and have the wind go out of them. And, but you're going to be on both sides. Like nobody wins everything. And so you're going to have to face challenges and sadness. Now, how you do that is important in hockey culture. And I know that in my work with all these groups, whatever the groups are, from little ones to big pro ones, we're teaching build a culture. So you measure against yourself, resiliency, but we also teach the coaches, say, look, this is, some groups need help. Coaching a 10-year-old boy or girl, they're not half of a 20-year-old. They're a completely different person. They need different things. So, you know, what there is change in the cultures itself. Like there's Robin, and you know what? It's 2024. So when I came to Utah in 1989 with the Golden Eagles, nobody in that locker room would say, I don't feel good. I feel vulnerable. I, I, uh, I, something's wrong. Nobody would say that.
Right.
Nobody. There was great athletes in that group. Now, it's changed, and that's the important thing is our culture and they've all changed. Like if you were to think about it, Jay, and this is for everybody listening, I'm 66. And so when I was growing up and playing, and I'm from Alberta, and so I played football and hockey and all that kind of, I grew up with a horse and a saddle and all that kind of stuff. And so I had my little subculture. Nobody ever complained. Nobody drank water.
Yeah,
You know,
that's true. Yeah.
no, I mean, people were smoking cigarettes and well, you know, even cigarettes, oh, it makes you look this way and it's good for you. And, you know, even,
Yeah.
you know, it's quite funny. Our hockey group, if they're listening to this, they may know this or they may not. But a lot of NHLers would have a smoke in the middle of between periods because they thought it was good for them. And the doctors of the day would say, yes, it's good for, well, that's preposterous. It hurts people. And we've moved away from it. Now, there's other examples. Sugar in our food. We've moved away from that. Alcohol. And here's where, you know, if you're in a hockey culture, you know, alcohol's kind of accepted and it's going to change. With a lot of the high priced, you know, high stakes athletes, they're saying, okay, maybe I better challenge this and not do what has been done before.
Yeah, I think you're starting to see that now. Like it's getting kind of talked about more that these athletes I'm trying to think of Johnny Taves. You know, they call him Captain Serious because he was one of the ones that was like, I'm not doing it. I'm not drinking. I'm not like I have a very strict diet. I'm a high performance athlete. I'm trying to stay away from that stuff. But so yeah, these are things that even, you know, I'm not that much younger than you, but even in my culture, like it was you couldn't say I need a mental health day. And especially on the fire department side of things and then the hockey department, you know, hockey playing thing, both sides of those were so masculine or whatever.
Mhm.
Like we were not allowed to have a mental health day. And the fire department's way behind on this. Like we're just getting into this the last 5 years where we can kind of like we used to call off sick and they would challenge us on why you called off sick. And
Well,
they didn't care if you had a horrible call the night before, the week before, or whatever, and that you were still trying to process that call. And I don't know,
well,
it's
yeah,
good to see
our,
it. And
our
you've been
culture,
seeing it the most.
our culture has changed though. The fire department 100 years ago was a lot different than it is today. There's pressure on those guys. There's travel. There's media. There's all kind. The food isn't as good. Our sleep patterns are diminished. So yes, maybe you could work 7 days in a row before. You can't do that anymore. And what would it, I mean, you guys do a really serious job. And by the way, I was born and raised in Calgary and I knew all the wrestlers and I was so proud of them because they became firemen. And I knew that if we had any trouble, those fellows were there. They were so brave and so strong. We trained together. But here we are in this culture. Would you rather have a fireman or firewoman come that's rested, that's their mood is good, they're 100% focused? Of course we would.
Yeah,
That's what we
100%.
want. And so maybe it's that we teach them about stress and say maybe, you know, a firewoman had to take care of a sick child and they didn't sleep. They have 1 hour of sleep. And so their mood, their processing is completely diminished. We can't allow them to go out. We need them to be in top form. So the culture has to evolve to the point where we go, no, no, look, I was up all night. I'm not ready to go. And we say, fine, no problem. We don't try to humiliate or diminish because they're actually aware that they're not functioning. One of the problems, though, Jay, is people may not be aware that they're not functioning very well. And it could be food. The big one's sleep. You know how I talk? It's kind of funny. I'm talking about cultural changes with sugar and cigarettes and tobacco and alcohol. The big one's coming with sleep.
Oh,
In 50 years, we're going to look back to this day. You and I were going to say, well, how come we didn't know how to make ourselves sharp? No, we don't know quite yet. All the
yeah.
cultural things change. You know what? Here's a good one. I was watching the Flames the other night, and Ryan Lomberg, he's a really tough customer. He won the cup, I think, with Florida last year, and he's up in Calgary. He's making his money, and he's a great player. You play in the NHL, even if you play one shift in the NHL, you're a fabulous, fabulous athlete.
Right.
And so I'm watching the Flames, and they say, well, Ryan Lomberg's out of the lineup tonight. And it's not because he's injured, it's because him and his wife are having a baby. Good luck, Ryan. And you know what? 30 years ago, that didn't happen.
Right.
Now, what I'm doing here is I'm bringing kind of the brain and your mental needs to the forefront because how many people will listen to this, Jay?
We're in the probably around 40,000.
No, that's great. But, many are parents and they're going to say, well, wait a sec. Is Dr. Dan serious about sleep? I am dead serious. There's things that we do to ourselves we think is normal, and they're hugely destructive. When you go to Smith's and you go to the soda thing and you pick up Coca-Cola, that's because there was cocaine in it at one point.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. We
Yeah.
kept the name. And I think, that there's a Harrison Narcotic Act of 1905. They took the cocaine out. But at the time, we thought that was a good idea. And
Yeah.
so here we are raising our little ones. And I will say, well, what's healthy? Well, make sure the coach has a culture. And every culture I go into, Jay, we have the core covenants and we stand, be together, tell the truth, work hard for each other. And there's our sociology that allows us to build strong people. And so now, as our parents are listening, well, what does you do as a parent? Well, proper foods. And you might say, here's where we say, well, my diet's fine, my sleep is fine. Probably not. So let me give you an example. So out of the last month, Jay, 30 days, 1 month period, how many mornings did you get up in the morning feeling muscularly great, clear as a bell, 100% function on mood, emotion, vigor, confidence? How many days out of those 30 do you wake up strong?
I honestly don't think there's been a day that I wake up like that anymore.
I do this with all of the groups I work with, and your response is quite normal, very normal.
Oh,
Now, here we are, 2024. Do we have the knowledge to get us? Yeah, but we got to get it to the right place, people, and make it every day. And so now we go back to the parents. What do? You do a little sleep tracker, and the technology's there.
yeah. You can buy a watch, buy a ring. That keeps.
Oh, it's
Yeah.
dirt cheap, dirt
Yeah.
cheap. And you say, well, did you woke up 5 times? How come? Well, staying up too late, blue light, caffeine, sugar, or just thinking the wrong things for your little ones. And you and I raised children, and you weren't. I was a doctor before the internet was out and practicing, but I watch now, and and when I deal with athletes, I say, bring your phone in. We look at the hours that they're looking, that they're on,
Oh
what they're
man.
looking at, and some of the things are pretty destructive. And so, as a parent, that's got to be guided.
Yeah.
And
But that's the norm now, right? Every kid has their phone in their hands nonstop.
Be careful. Yeah, smoking was a norm once.
Ah.
Yeah, so you get that these cultural kinds of things sometimes hurt us. Now, it's so great to have a hockey coach that gets on the ice. Come on, let's go, everybody. And there's music in the locker room, and there's jokes, and there's fun, and we're having experiences together where we can talk. And so, when a child comes in late, they have to come in and say, "Sorry, I was late. I was doing homework." I said, "Don't be late again." We're talking. We're having real experiences. And rather than getting on the internet and saying, "Well, the internet says I should do," no, that's not you. Your family, your teammates. Those are real experiences that a child has to think about. And then when they run into you or me and they say, "Well, look, I spent 6 hours doing this," and you go, "Whoa, that's gonna set you back." Now, yeah, we have to break, and I realize that it's gonna morph into something else.
Right.
Who knows what it'll morph into, but
No,
all
it's
things are, to go back to Robin, good on him. I know he's suffering right now, and if I understood it, he had, like everybody, a fair amount of the population struggles with a disorder. Like, you're probably listening, and the people that are listening to us, probably 20% of them are struggling with an anxiety or depression problem, but they don't know it. And hopefully through this podcast, they go, "I wonder if," and if they do a little sleep tracker and they realize, "Oh my goodness, I'm really only getting 3 hours of sleep. No wonder I feel poorly." Then you and I have opened up their world considerably. Maybe it will affect their children in terms of sleep and health and coping.
Yeah, I hope so. Honestly, that's one of the reasons I wanted to have you on here. And Robin's been pretty open with his struggles with mental health, and he's talked about it in the past. That's the panda bear on his mask, and the nickname Panda has something to do with his mental health and his. I believe he was diagnosed bipolar, and that to me kind of explains some of that. And obviously, I'm not at your depth of thing. I'm just the paramedic that just looks at stuff, points fingers, and then tries to get him to the right place, right?
Yeah, but you get to fly on helicopters and save people.
Yeah, that's true, and it's fun. Um, but I just thought if I could get you on here again, and people reach out to me and they're like, "Hey, my kid is playing hockey, and I think maybe their coaches have some chemical dependence or alcohol dependence. Is that because of hockey?" And I always say, to me, hockey's my therapy, and I always thought putting my kids in sports was the best. And I'm telling this to my kids now for my grandkids. So my kids are now getting into sports. And I want to say, listen, to me, sports gave me friends.
Mhm.
Sports taught me to deal with, you know, life issues, winning, losing, like you're talking about before, taking a hit, being able to get back up, being able to give a hit. Um, just these little victories that helped me as a person, and the challenges that helped me as a person. I always thought that was good for us growing up. Now what you're saying, I think it's even better because this forces you can't be looking at Twitter when you're on the ice. So,
Yeah.
but is it, because even the little kids now, they have the structure of hockey now is so much different than when you and I grew up. And these kids are on the ice a lot. And there's no more just like, hey, I have practice on Wednesdays and then I have a game on Saturday. It seems like every kid, if they decide they're going to play a sport, all of a sudden is just totally digested by that sport. And so you start wondering, where's the balance? Does that take off of being healthy?
Mhm.
Is it still therapy? Is it good for kids? Is it Are we still teaching the life lessons we thought we were? Or are we just overwhelming them with the sport, thinking they're going to get that what was it, 0.5%
Yeah.
if kids get a scholarship?
Yeah. Well, it can be tricky. It's probably, I'll start in on it for you, but we could do a whole session on finding a child's passion. And so Jean Cote is a researcher in Quebec, and he studied all the pros and all that kind of thing. But what we try to do as parents is we say, well, look, go to ballet, go to baseball, go to drama, go to writing camp, go camping, and they sample different things. The children sample different activities to see what hits them. But it's not quite so simple, because if you have a really good instructor on your first interchange at art and you come home and you're excited, you're going to you're going to get on your cell phone and say, well, what's art and what are the different, you're going to go down a pathway, and whatever genetics you have, who knows what they are, they start to get expressed. And so when we do activities, it's so important that we have the right people doing it. Now, and this goes into, let's say you're playing baseball or hockey or something, and somehow they say, well, you need a private, and all of a sudden you're cranking out $90, traveling the child an hour to the rink to get a private, and that private may not be the best influence on the child. Well, they're going to hate hockey for
Right.
the wrong reasons. And so the people involved have to be kind of on board. And by the way, I've seen some fabulous trainers. I mean, really fabulous. And they can be fun and develop competency and actually teach some of the coping skills. That might be something that you and I could talk about later, because the coping skills you teach a child are interesting, because they're not fully developed. Their sense of self is not fully developed, and they might think losing a game is the end of the world, and they cry. Why do they cry? Well, no, we teach them not to cry. You just lost a game. Nothing bad happened.
Right.
But anyway, it comes to the people that are around. Now, you can do a lot as a parent, but you can be also, pretty destructive as a parent. And we've seen all of that all over the
Oh yeah.
place. And you know what, Jay, when I first got my degree, I started writing articles and things, and I wasn't a very good writer. And then I was on an airplane. I was coming back, and I wrote this article. Daddy came to my game, and now he's in prison.
Okay, what was that
And,
about?
whoa, that was hockey, actually. It was in Boston.
Oh, I do know. I know what you're talking about.
Now, this was a long time ago. And
Yeah.
I'll tell you what, it kind of, yeah, it's an example. And for everyone listening, it was in this summer in Boston, and some children were practicing, and a parent didn't like what was going on. No competition, came on the ice, and they fought with the trainer, and the trainer hit his head and died. Now, this is craziness to the extreme, but you do see it at youth events.
We're seeing it
And
more and more.
yeah, it's more, yeah, because of various kinds of fear and things that are being transmogrified into our culture. Have you seen John Wick? Okay, I mean,
Yeah.
there's variations of that. The Equalizer, these are fictions, by the way. They're not real.
No way, John Wick's my idol. You're telling me that's not real?
No, but how cool is that? But we call this suspension of disbelief. It means that you're a rational person, and when you watch Keanu Reeves go into make believe, you go, "That's hilarious," and then at the end you come back.
Right.
Okay, so this is modeling for adults, and so and now I'm getting a little bit ahead of myself, but if you're going to be a parent and you want your child to do well, there's certain things that you model, because they will adapt your behaviors. And certainly this is what the great coaches, instructors do. And, I helped write the curriculum for USA Hockey, and boy, did I catch an earful when we were talking about developmental stages and small-sided games.
I remember a lot of that, and I remember your videos popping up on that.
Oh yeah,
And
sorry they were so long, but
but the parents were like, "No, that's not the way we've always done it." Right?
yeah,
Is that
yeah, how come my 7-year-old can't go coast to coast 200 feet? No, and so the idea is that, look, we're designing things that help people grow. And even you and me, like when you were young, did you think you would be doing a podcast?
I don't. I know they didn't exist, but I did not. I there's nothing I'm doing in my life now that I thought I would be doing when I was
How
young.
great is that?
Yeah.
Creativity, growth, new things. You're helping a lot of people. When, athletic trainers weren't a thing when I
Oh yeah.
played. They weren't. They were just, nobody trained them. Now they're everywhere and they help. You can, there's all kinds of, nutritional things, sleep things, medical things. And now we're talking about mental health. And certainly, like if you were to take a look at your elbow, and I was trying to think, any hockey player, if you take a look at their shins, even when they're retired, or their teeth, their elbows, it's all broken up. But we go and we get patched up, and the same thing has to happen to your brain, your consciousness. There's certain things you go, okay, I'm not going to do that anymore. There's a strategy that works uniquely for me that's going to help me grow. And so, yes, we take care of it. We wear pads. There are certain moves we don't do. We protect ourselves. We don't put our head down, that kind of thing. Well, there's certain things that you do that I teach. And, in this world now we have knowledge on how to help people be happy and confident and strong.
Do you think every team in the NHL has a sports psychologist now? Because I remember you used to be, and I don't know who you still work for, but I know there was a time when it's like, uh, Dan Freigang is our sports psychologist, Team USA, team uh,
Yep.
Stanford soccer. Like you are everybody's. Does everybody have their own now?
I wouldn't say everybody. It depends on the group, but certainly, and this is the great thing about what Robin is doing, is, he's saying, look, I was really hurt. And, obviously, he had other things going on, and he had concussions, and was living in an alcohol kind of world. Now, by the way, I don't know Robin, so I can't comment directly, but I'll tell you what, they call this comorbidity.
Oh
When
yeah.
Yeah, when you have a couple things going, if you have multiple concussions and you think you're okay by having a couple of beers and being sleep deprived and then being away from your family, no, no, no. If you have a predisposition to go into anxiety or whatever it is, no, that's really reckless and it's really dangerous. And so what he's doing, he's saying it's okay to say no. And he's doing it for all the other people that said, look, investigate my sleep. And by the way, the football players that play for the Calgary Stampeders, the greatest team ever. All
Okay.
right. Okay. No, but no, the NFL guys and the college guys, the thing that's going on there is that it's like a car crash. Every time one of those hits occur and you hear that crack, and what you're finding is these multiple kind of traumas to the head. By the time an ex-player has had them all and they're 45, they're really suffering. You know, that CTE.
Yeah.
Now we're stopping that. Okay, you can't spear. We teach different techniques, little chip in the helmet. I was with the team in Germany, Jay, and we were driving, and the bus driver, he pulls over to the side, and I go, "What's going on?" And he goes, "I've already driven 3 hours. I need to rest." It's the law. Now,
Wow.
no, I think that's actually coming. So I do, well, I was born in 58 and I remember playing with equipment that wasn't so good. And, the guys before me played without helmets. And if you think
Yeah.
of the equipment, it's way better, way more protective. The rules that protect people, hits to the head, the medical treatment, it's all shifting and changing. And I do think probably a little chip in the helmet that measures velocity, it's coming. It's not my area, but all these things are there to help people find the best version of themselves.
Yeah, no, I think you and I could talk for. I think we need to make a little bit of a series with you, and maybe like we were talking about next, maybe you and I can have another half hour on just talking about uh, ways to deal with stuff, teaching kids how to handle situations or the coping mechanisms. Maybe that could be our next episode. Would you be willing to come back a couple times and
Oh,
help
for
us
you,
out?
Jay, I'd be happy to come and help you. Yeah, well, you should talk to your constituents or whatever it is you do. I'm pretty private. I stay off of social media, but you can ask, what would your constituents like to hear about? Would they like to hear about how to teach kids to be mentally resilient? That's teaching coping skills. Or maybe how to be a positive modeling for parenting, how to defeat the vampire. So I don't really sound like a qualified doctor, but kids like to hear, are vampires real? And what I'm referring to is anxiety and fear.
Oh, okay.
So, no, no, ask around. We can do it. I'm knocking social media, but here we are over Zoom.
Yeah.
How easy was that?
And it's great because I think when it comes down to it, there's a lot of great things that social media and Zoom and stuff like this bring us. I don't know if it's worth it in the long run for all the bad stuff it brings us and all the craziness that it seems to create. I'm not an expert. I'm barely just hanging on to myself here. So I
No,
just
you got to grow, you got to learn. There's positives. When the printing press was when it was kind of invented, it kind of coincided with a cultural kind of reformation in Europe. And the Bible, that was written in Latin and only for a few people, now could be converted into German and French and Italian and distributed, and anyone could interpret it. And at the time, they thought this is the end of the world because books will destroy people.
oh
They'll
wow.
go their own way.
And we found the good in books.
We found the good. Yeah.
Yeah.
There it is.
Yeah.
Television, internet. We're good. This is what you and I are doing right now.
Very cool.
Trying to push it forward. Oh, I can see your heart just swelled like the Grinch there, didn't it?
uh, Yeah, I like it. I mean, I like it, and I want to think that I'm helping. I think I've dedicated my life to try to help people, and I'd like to think that that's what this podcast is about. It's like having fun and helping and telling stories. I think telling stories helps people because you identify with different parts of different people's
Yeah,
stories and their history and you see how they got through it or didn't get through it or the mistakes they made, where that matches up with you, and how can you take that to make your life better. I
there,
think that's a lot of what storytelling's for.
yeah, there we go.
All right, Dano. I appreciate your time. I say give me a couple weeks. I'll put out some fillers and we'll see what my audience wants to hear and we'll go for that.
Okay.
Thanks for joining us for another episode of the Utah Puck Report. Please like and subscribe wherever you get your podcast. Rate us, leave us feedback, let us know what you want us to do better. Big thanks to our sponsors, Only Crowns. Love having a dentist sponsor for the hockey podcast. Check them out at onlycrowns.com. Thanks to KSL Sports, the Utah Hockey Club, Madison Miller, and Tegan Stevens for producing. And thanks to the American Hitmen for that awesome intro song. We'll see you next week.